When Jake pulled a tiny black puppy from a roadside ditch on a rainy night, he believed he'd just saved an abandoned dog. But at the vet's clinic, the doctor's face drained of color. This isn't what you think," he whispered. What Jake thought was a simple rescue would turn into the most shocking day of his life. Stay with us as we reveal a true-to-life twist that will leave you speechless until the final second. Rain hammered Jake's windshield as he steered his old pickup down the empty country road. The clock read 11:47 p.m. Wind gusts shoved at the truck, wipers barely keeping pace. A flicker at the roadside snagged his eye. He eased off the gas, scanning the storm-dark ditch. A tiny shape trembled in the beam of his headlights. Jake pulled over and stepped into the downpour, flashlight slicing through rain. Water soaked his boots as he crouched beside a shivering black bundle, no bigger than his palm. Two ink-bright eyes blinked back. No collar, no mother, only the storm. "Hey there, little one," he murmured, reaching out. The creature squeaked but didn't retreat. Jake slipped off his glove, lifted the fragile body and tucked it inside his jacket. A frantic heartbeat pressed against his chest. The rain roared on. But for Jake, the night had narrowed to the small life he had just saved. Jake shut the truck door with his elbow, careful not to jostle the small bundle inside his jacket. The heater blasted warm air as he settled behind the wheel. For the first time since stopping, he took a longer look at the little creature resting against his chest. Under the dashboard light, it looked even tinier, no heavier than a handful of coins. Its fur, a deep glossy black, clung to its delicate frame, still damp from the storm. He gently peeled back his jacket to give it air. The puppy, if that's what it was, blinked slowly, huge round eyes catching every hint of light. They were almost too large for its head, dark pools with a faint silver ring. Jake's heart clenched. He'd seen his share of newborn pups growing up on a farm, but nothing like this. Its ears were sharply pointed and seemed a bit oversized, standing upright despite the chill. Tiny paws ended in needle-thin claws, barely visible but strong enough to cling to the fabric of his sleeve. "You're a tough little fighter, aren't you?" he whispered, offering a gentle finger. The creature nuzzled it briefly, then gave a soft, high chirp that sounded more like a bird than any puppy Jake had known. The sound startled him, but also filled him with relief. Life pulsed inside that fragile body. He placed it on a folded towel on the passenger seat and turned up the heater. Steam from his soaked clothes fogged the windows, wrapping the cab in a warm haze. Outside, rain hammered the roof, but inside, a quiet world existed for just the two of them. Jake glanced down repeatedly as he drove, watching the small chest rise and fall. Each breath felt like a tiny victory. In that moment, the long day's fatigue vanished. All that mattered was getting this mysterious little survivor somewhere safe and dry. Whatever it was, puppy, stray, or something else entirely, it had trusted him enough to curl up in the crook of his coat. And Jake silently promised that no matter what the night held, he wouldn't let that trust be broken. By the time Jake reached his driveway, the rain had eased to a misty drizzle, but his heart still raced. He parked under the dim porch light and looked at the tiny creature dozing on the towel. A new worry crept in. What if it was too young to survive the night? He grabbed his phone, scrolling for the nearest animal shelter. The top listings all showed closed. Midnight wasn't a good time for emergencies that required paperwork and staff. He considered calling animal control, but the thought of the fragile little body spending the night in a cold municipal kennel made him hesitate. What if it needed warmth and constant care? The creature shifted slightly, letting out a faint chirp that tugged at his heart. Jake exhaled. "No," he murmured. "You're not spending the night in a cage." Decision made, he stepped out, shielding the bundle with his jacket and hurrying up the steps. Inside, warm light greeted him, along with the soft creak of floorboards. He grabbed an old fleece blanket from the hall closet and made a small nest in a basket near the fireplace. The little creature responded instantly, curling deeper into the soft folds, as if it had finally found safety. Jake filled a small dish with warm milk and placed it nearby, hoping instinct might guide it to drink. The tiny nose twitched, but it didn't move toward the bowl. He frowned. Most puppies would lap eagerly. Still, it seemed calm, its breathing steady now that the chill was gone. Standing over the basket, Jake felt a quiet resolve settle in. Tonight, at least, the little survivor was his responsibility. He would keep it safe until morning, when a vet could give real answers. The house was silent, except for the faint hiss of rain outside and the soft crackle from the fireplace. Jake knelt beside the basket, watching the tiny creature settle into the fleece. At first, it looked like any chilled animal warming itself, but soon he noticed little details that didn't fit. The small body shifted with a surprising grace, stretching its limbs in slow, precise movements, unlike the wobbly flails of a newborn pup. Its ears twitched constantly, pivoting toward sounds Jake couldn't even hear. He slid the shallow dish of warm milk a little closer. "Come on, little one," he coaxed. "You've had a rough night. This will help." The creature sniffed the air but made no move to drink. Instead, it tilted its head, released a short series of high, bird-like chirps, and blinked up at him. The sound sent a curious chill down Jake's spine. It wasn't the whimper of a hungry puppy. It was something stranger, sharper. Thinking maybe it wanted solid food, Jake retrieved a small bit of leftover chicken from the fridge, shredding it into tiny pieces. He placed the morsels on a plate. Again, the creature only sniffed and turned its face away. Its delicate nostrils flared. Then it let out a soft, almost musical trill that echoed faintly in the quiet room. The sound felt, while Jake sat back on his heels, perplexed. He'd raised litters of barn puppies as a kid. None had behaved like this. He reached in to gently stroke its head. The creature closed its eyes and leaned slightly into his touch. Yet its heart thudded fast beneath the thin fur, a rapid, steady beat that felt different from any puppies he remembered. Outside, thunder rolled distantly. Inside, Jake felt the night stretching longer and stranger. Something about this small life didn't belong to the simple category of puppy he had assumed. He couldn't name the difference, but he felt it, an undercurrent of mystery that made him both protective and uneasy. The soft creak of floorboards pulled Jake from his thoughts. He turned to find his wife, Emily, standing in the doorway, a robe wrapped tight around her. Sleep still clouded her eyes, but curiosity flickered when she noticed the basket by the fire. "What on earth are you doing up this late?" she asked, voice low, so as not to wake the kids. Jake gestured toward the tiny creature nestled in the blanket. "Found this little one on the roadside. Couldn't leave it there in the rain." Emily stepped closer, squinting. "That's not a puppy, is it?" Her brow furrowed. The animal blinked up at her, ears twitching. Before Jake could answer, quick footsteps padded down the hallway. Their two children, Lily and Max, appeared, hair tousled, eyes wide with excitement. "Is that a baby dog?" Max whispered, already inching closer. "Careful," Emily cautioned, gently blocking him. "It might be scared or sick." Lily crouched beside the basket, her face softening. "It's beautiful," she breathed. The creature chirped a faint note, almost musical, earning delighted giggles from both kids. Emily folded her arms, concern deepening. "Jake, we don't even know what it is. What if it's wild or carries something?" Jake met her gaze, steady but calm. "I'll take it to a vet first thing in the morning. For now it just needs warmth and rest." The children pleaded to stay longer, but Emily eventually herded them back toward their rooms. As she left, she threw one last uneasy glance at the basket. Alone again, Jake settled beside the fire. The little creature shifted, pressing closer into the blanket, as if sensing it had found a temporary home. Despite Emily's doubts, Jake felt sure of one thing. Tonight, this tiny stranger was counting on him. Morning light had barely touched the curtains when Jake's alarm buzzed. He hadn't slept much. Every rustle from the basket kept him alert. The tiny creature had dozed peacefully, but its odd bird-like chirps echoed in his mind. He brewed coffee with one hand while scrolling his phone with the other, determined to find professional help before the kids woke fully. The first calls went to local animal shelters. One after another, automated messages played, "Our office opens at 9 a.m. 9 felt like a lifetime away. Jake tried the nearest rescue center, voicemail, He left a message anyway, describing the mysterious black puppy and its unusual sounds. Next, he dialed a couple of veterinary clinics. Each receptionist politely explained their schedules were full until late afternoon. The creature chirped softly from its basket, as if sensing the urgency. Jake's jaw tightened. Waiting all day wasn't an option. Finally, a listing caught his eye. Evergreen Emergency Animal Hospital, open 24/7. It was across town. A 40-minute drive, but the words emergency care lit a spark of relief. He called immediately. A calm voice answered, assuring him they could see the animal right away. "Bring it in carefully," the staff member advised. "Keep it warm and secure." Jake ended the call and exhaled, tension easing just slightly. He glanced toward the fireplace where the tiny creature watched with those luminous eyes. Head tilted, as though understanding every word. Decision made. He grabbed the softest blanket he could find and fashioned a snug carrier from a shoebox lined with towels. "Hang on, little one," he whispered, gently lifting the fragile body. "We're going to figure this out." With that, Jake headed for the door, heart pounding with both worry and hope as the morning rain began to fall again. The roads glistened beneath a fresh curtain of rain as Jake eased onto the highway, the small box seat-belted beside him. Dawn was still a pale promise on the horizon, and the wipers beat a steady rhythm, like a nervous heartbeat. From inside the shoebox, the little creature shifted and released a soft, high chirp. The sound pierced the quiet cab, making Jake's hands tighten on the steering wheel. "It's okay, little one," he murmured, lowering the radio volume. "We'll be there soon." But his own pulse betrayed him. The drive felt longer than 40 minutes. Every few miles, the creature stirred again, sometimes letting out a strange trill that reminded him of a wild bird greeting the morning. At times, it even scrabbled at the blanket, the faint scratch of tiny claws echoing unnervingly in the confined space. Streetlights blurred past, their reflections streaking across the wet asphalt. Jake's mind churned. What if Emily had been right, and this wasn't a dog at all? He imagined every possibility, an exotic stray, a rare wild mammal, something endangered. The thought of unknowingly harboring a wild species sent a shiver through him. But each time the creature let out a faint squeak, compassion won over fear. Halfway there, the rain thickened, drumming harder on the roof. Jake slowed, hazard lights flashing as he navigated a slick curve. The box trembled slightly, and a tiny nose peeked from under the blanket, glistening in the dim glow of the dashboard. The creature's eyes reflected the light like polished onyx, unblinking and alert. By the time the glowing green sign of Evergreen Emergency Animal Hospital came into view, Jake's shoulders ached from tension. He pulled into the empty lot, heart pounding, and whispered a final reassurance. "Hang in there. Help is waiting inside." The clinic doors slid open with a gentle whoosh, releasing a wave of warm, antiseptic-scented air. Jake stepped inside, the shoebox cradled against his chest like a fragile treasure. The waiting room was quiet, lit by soft overhead lights and lined with cheerful posters of dogs and cats. Behind the counter, a young receptionist looked up from her computer, startled by the early morning visitor. "Emergency intake?" she asked quickly. "Yes," Jake replied, his voice edged with urgency. "Found this little one on the roadside last night. It's different. Won't eat, just makes these strange sounds." Her eyes widened when she peeked inside the box. Without a word, she tapped a button on the intercom. "Dr. Myers, we have a critical intake." Moments later, a tall man in a lab coat entered, adjusting his stethoscope as he approached. His salt-and-pepper hair was slightly tousled, but his movements were sharp and practiced. "Let's have a look," he said, offering a reassuring nod. Jake gently handed over the box. Dr. Myers carefully peeled back the blanket. The creature blinked up at him, eyes gleaming under the sterile lights. For a heartbeat, the vet simply stared. The friendly professionalism on his face froze, replaced by something unreadable, surprise, maybe even alarm. He slowly reached for a pair of thin gloves. Jake's stomach tightened. "What's wrong?" Instead of answering immediately, the vet leaned closer, examining the tiny paws, the sharp ears. the delicate muzzle. The creature let out one of its soft, high-pitched trills, and Dr. Myers flinched slightly, as if the sound confirmed a suspicion. He set the box on the exam table and grabbed a penlight, checking the animal's pupils and breathing with quick, precise motions. Finally, he looked up, his expression more serious than Jake had anticipated. "This isn't what you think it is," he said quietly. Jake blinked. "You mean it's not a puppy?" The doctor exhaled, still watching the small creature as if it might vanish. No, not even close. The room seemed to shrink around them. The steady tick of a wall clock suddenly felt louder. Jake's mind raced with possibilities. Rare breed, exotic pet, something worse. But the way Dr. Myers's face had gone pale told him the truth was stranger than anything he could guess. Dr. Myers removed his gloves slowly, as if buying a moment to choose the right words. The small creature shifted under the clinic's bright lights, its glossy fur catching a faint sheen of silver. Jake's heart hammered. "If it's not a puppy," he asked, "then what is it?" The vet exhaled, eyes never leaving the tiny animal. "What you brought in," he said carefully, "is a baby black fox. A very young one, probably only a few weeks old." Jake blinked in disbelief. "A fox, but it let me hold it. It didn't even try to bite. That's what's remarkable," Dr. Myers replied, leaning closer to inspect the small muzzle. "Fox kits this young are usually hidden deep in a den. For one to be out alone in a storm is rare. For it to accept human touch this calmly," he shook his head. "It's extraordinary." The revelation landed hard. Images of farmyard foxes, quick, wild, and untouchable, flashed in Jake's mind. Yet here was this fragile life, quiet and trusting, nestled in a blanket like any household pet. Dr. Myers's voice softened but stayed firm. It must have been separated from its mother. Maybe the den collapsed in the rain, or the mother was injured. Either way, it wouldn't have survived the night on its own. Jake swallowed. I had no idea. I thought I was rescuing a stray pup." "You did rescue it," the vet assured him. "In fact, bringing it here may have saved its life. But foxes are wild animals. By law, they require specialized care. They can carry illnesses and need a diet very different from dogs. Keeping it as a pet, even with good intentions, isn't safe for you or for the animal." The little kit let out a soft, haunting chirp, almost as if responding. Jake felt a strange mix of awe and sadness. "So what happens now?" "We'll contact a licensed wildlife rescue," Dr. Myers explained. "They can provide medical treatment, proper nutrition, and eventually help it return to the wild where it belongs. The fact that you found it so quickly gives it a real chance to survive." Relief washed over Jake, chased by a pang of loss. He looked at the small black fox, its bright eyes reflecting the clinic's light. In the quiet between their breaths, he realized he had stumbled into something far bigger than a simple roadside rescue. Dr. Myers placed a gentle hand on Jake's shoulder. "You didn't just save a puppy tonight," he said. "You saved a piece of the wild." For a long moment, Jake simply stood there, absorbing the news. A baby black fox. The idea felt surreal. He glanced at the small creature on the exam table, so delicate, so quiet, yet now carrying an entirely different meaning. Dr. Myers noticed the mix of wonder and unease on Jake's face. "I know it's surprising," he said gently, "but there's more you should understand. Wild fox kits often carry parasites and can harbor diseases like distemper or rabies, even if they look perfectly healthy. Early symptoms can be invisible." He gestured to the gloves he had worn. "That's why I handle wildlife with extra caution." Jake's chest tightened. He thought back to holding the tiny body against his own, feeling its heart race under his jacket. "So I could have been bitten or exposed without realizing." "Possibly," the vet admitted. "But your quick action may have prevented worse. If the kit had wandered onto the road or deeper into the storm, infection or injury would have been almost certain. You gave it a chance." The little fox gave another soft chirp, stretching a paw as if punctuating the point. Dr. Myers smiled faintly, but kept his tone serious. "Because this is a wild species, state law requires we transfer it to a licensed wildlife rehabilitation center. They can treat any hidden conditions and provide the specialized diet it needs, high in proteins and certain vitamins puppies don't require. A domestic setting just can't meet those needs safely. Jake nodded slowly. He hadn't considered how different a fox's life would be from that of a house pet. So keeping it, even for a day, isn't right. Exactly, Dr. Myers said. Your compassion saved it, but now expert care is the next step. Jake looked once more at the kit's luminous eyes. The night's mystery had deepened, but one thing was clear. His roadside rescue had been more urgent and more dangerous than he ever imagined. Dr. Myers stepped out to make the call to the wildlife rescue, leaving Jake alone with the tiny fox. The clinic had grown quieter as the morning advanced, but inside the exam room, every second felt heavy. The little kit lay curled on the towel, breathing in quick, shallow bursts. Jake crouched beside the table, alarm rising, as he noticed a faint tremor ripple through its body. When the vet returned, urgency sharpened his movements. "The rescue team is on their way," he said, already donning fresh gloves. "But we need to stabilize it. Its temperature is dropping." He turned on a portable heat lamp and adjusted it over the box, then retrieved a syringe of nutrient-rich formula. "Low blood sugar and hypothermia are serious in animals this young," he explained. The fox stirred weakly, letting out a fragile trill that barely reached Jake's ears. Dr. Myers slipped a soft cloth under its tiny head and carefully fed it small drops of warmed formula. Some liquid dribbled onto the towel, but a little finally passed its lips. "That's it, stay with us," he murmured. Jake's heart pounded. He felt helpless, wanting to do more, yet knowing only trained hands could make a difference. Memories of finding the kit in the storm flashed again. How cold it had been, how its heartbeat had thudded wildly against his chest. Had he waited even an hour longer, would it have survived? Suddenly the fox let out a sharper cry, its small body tensing. Dr. Myers checked its pulse, his brow furrowing. "We are on the edge," he said quietly. He motioned to a vet tech to bring an oxygen mask designed for tiny mammals. They worked quickly, placing the mask over the kit's nose and adjusting the airflow. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the fox's breathing steadied, the tremors easing under the warmth of the lamp. Dr. Myers released a slow breath and gave Jake a brief, relieved nod. "You got it here just in time. Another hour in the cold and we might have lost it." Jake exhaled, a mix of relief and awe washing over him. His midnight choice to stop on that stormy road had made the difference between life and death for this fragile piece of the wild. A soft chime from the clinic's front door broke the tense quiet. Moments later, two people in waterproof jackets stepped briskly into the exam room. Carrying insulated carriers and medical kits, marked Wildlife Rescue Unit. The taller of the pair, a woman with kind but focused eyes, introduced herself. "I'm Clara, this is Ben. We specialize in neonatal wild mammals." "You must be Jake." Jake nodded, stepping back as they approached the exam table. Clara leaned over the box, her breath catching when she saw the tiny black fox under the warming lamp. "Oh my, a melanistic kit," she whispered, awe softening her professional tone. "Incredible. These are extremely rare." Ben was already unpacking equipment, tiny syringes, heat packs, and a padded transport carrier. "Vitals?" he asked Dr. Myers, without looking up. "Stabilized but fragile," the vet replied, handing over the notes. "Hypothermia and low glucose. We started warmed formula and oxygen support." Clara nodded appreciatively. "Excellent work. You may have saved its life twice tonight, first by rescuing it and again by bringing it here so quickly." Jake felt a rush of mixed pride and humility. "I honestly thought it was a puppy," he admitted. "I just couldn't leave it in the rain." "That instinct is why it's alive," Clara said with a quick, reassuring smile. "But now it needs specialized care we can provide. Round-the-clock feeding, disease screening, in a protected environment until it can be released back to the wild." She and Ben moved with quiet efficiency, sliding the kit into a small fleece-lined travel pod warmed by chemical heat packs. The fox stirred only slightly, its tiny chest rising in steady rhythm. Clara secured the lid and glanced at Jake. "You gave this little one a fighting chance. We'll keep you updated on its recovery." Jake exhaled, the knot in his chest loosening. Watching the rescue team carry the fragile life toward a second chance, he felt both relief and a surprising ache, as if saying goodbye to something far larger than the tiny creature itself. Clara held the insulated carrier close as she and Ben prepared to leave. The tiny black fox barely stirred inside, safe within the soft folds of fleece. Jake stood a step back, hands resting on his hips, torn between gratitude and a quiet sadness he hadn't expected. "You can absolutely call us for updates," Clara said warmly, sensing his hesitation. "But for now, the less stress this kit has, the better its chances. We'll handle vaccinations, specialized feeding, and eventual release." Jake nodded, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. I hope its mother is okay somewhere." Ben offered a gentle look. "Nature can be unpredictable, but thanks to you, this little one has a real chance." "That's more than most get." Jake crouched beside the carrier for one last look. Through a small mesh window, he caught the shimmer of those striking dark eyes. The kit blinked slowly, almost dreamily, and let out a faint musical chirp. The sound was soft but carried an odd weight, as if the tiny fox understood that something important was happening. "Goodbye, little fighter," Jake whispered, his voice barely audible over the quiet hum of the clinic's machines. "You hang in there." Emily and the children had arrived just in time to watch. Lily pressed close to her father, her own eyes misty. "It's like saying goodbye to a friend," she said softly. Jake wrapped an arm around her. "Sometimes loving something means letting it go where it belongs," he replied. Clara gave a final nod of thanks, then turned toward the door. Jake followed them out, standing in the cool morning air as the rescue vehicle pulled away. The tail lights faded down the empty street, leaving him with the quiet understanding that his small act of compassion had opened into something far greater than he had imagined. 2 days later, the house felt strangely quiet without the soft chirps that had filled the night of the rescue. Jake found himself glancing toward the fireplace where the basket had sat, half expecting to see the tiny black fox curled inside. Even Emily admitted she missed the unexpected guest, though she still marveled at how easily it had trusted them. Late that afternoon, Jake's phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. He answered quickly and was greeted by Clara's warm, steady voice. "I wanted to update you," she said. "The little kit is doing remarkably well. We stabilized its glucose levels, and it's responding beautifully to specialized formula. No signs of illness so far." Relief flooded Jake. "That's wonderful news," he said, motioning for Emily and the kids to gather close. He put the call on speaker so everyone could hear. Clara continued, "We've also run initial checks for parasites and disease. Everything looks clear. We'll still monitor carefully, but this is an excellent start." Max clapped his hands. "Does that mean it can go back to the wild?" "In time, yes," Clara replied, her smile evident even through the phone. "It will stay with us for a few months while it grows and learns survival skills. When it's strong enough, we'll release it in a protected area, far from roads and human settlements." Jake exchanged a proud glance with Emily. "Please keep us posted when that day comes," he said. "We absolutely will," Clara assured him. "And thank you again for stopping, for caring, and for bringing it in so quickly. You gave that fox a second chance." After the call ended, the family sat together in a thoughtful silence. Outside, the evening sky deepened into soft shades of blue and rose. Jake felt a quiet satisfaction settle over him. The little creature he had once mistaken for a puppy was now on a path back to the wild where it truly belonged. A life saved, not just sheltered. The house might be quieter now, but the memory of that stormy night carried a new kind of warmth, proof that a single act of compassion can ripple far beyond what anyone first imagines. A week later, Jake stood on his porch beneath a sky washed clean by spring rain. The world felt alive again. Birds chattered in the maples, and the scent of damp earth drifted on the breeze. Yet his mind kept circling back to that stormy night, the faint flicker in the ditch, the weightless body against his chest, the startling moment when Dr. Myers had said, "This isn't a puppy." He realized how close he'd come to driving past. A single choice to stop had changed everything. Without it, the tiny fox might have vanished into the rain, another silent loss no one would ever know. Instead, it was alive, growing stronger each day, with a future waiting in the wild. Inside, Emily and the kids were already planning a small celebration for the day Clara would call to announce the release. Lily wanted to draw a picture of the fox. Max insisted on baking cookies shaped like little paw prints. Their excitement warmed Jake's heart. What began as a late-night rescue had become a lesson his whole family would carry. That compassion sometimes asks for quick courage and quiet letting go. Jake leaned against the porch railing and whispered into the soft morning air, "Good luck out there, little one." He pictured the black kit darting through tall grass months from now, strong and free beneath the open sky. Turning back inside, he felt a calm certainty settle over him. Helping doesn't always mean keeping. Sometimes the greatest kindness is to give a life back to where it belongs. And in that simple truth lay the lasting gift of the night. He thought he'd saved a puppy, but ended up saving something wilder, rarer, and far more extraordinary.